start the final press conference from Minister Tajani immediately. I'd like to give him the floor, and then I'll call out your names individually for the questions. Somebody's left their glasses here, and then they will lose them. I wouldn't like that to happen. In any case, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for having covered this G7 so extensively, which was held in days which have been rather complicated internationally. But I think these 3 days of meeting have been a success because we found a great unity of intent. We found convergence on all the most important international issues, from the Middle East to the Red Sea, to the situation in Ukraine, but also the situation in the Indo-Pacific. We also decided
che la nostra collaborazione sia permanente, che ci sia un costante contatto giorno dopo giorno tra i nostri ministeri per uno scambio di informazioni, per fare delle scelte sempre più comuni sulle grandi questioni internazionali, compresa la disinformazione. Come sapete e come avete già annunciato sui vostri giornali, sulle vostre agenzie, attraverso le vostre emittenti, stamane abbiamo cambiato l'ordine dei lavori perché abbiamo deciso di affrontare subito la questione Israele-Iran, una pretensione prioritaria sul Medio Oriente. Io ho voluto subito che ci fosse un messaggio chiaro da parte di tutto il G7. L'obiettivo politico del G7 si chiama de-escalation. Abbiamo lavorato, lavoriamo e continueremo a lavorare, cioè ad essere protagonisti attivi per una de-escalation in tutta l'area del Medio Oriente. Per quanto mi riguarda, è da stanotte che sono in contatto con le ambasciate d'Italia a Teheran e con l'ambasciata d'Italia a Tel Aviv. Adesso devo dire per i giornalisti italiani che non c'è alcun problema per i nostri connazionali. Abbiamo approvato 2 documenti conclusivi, uno che riguarda la situazione nel Medio Oriente e l'altro poi sulla situazione che riguarda l'Ucraina. Abbiamo condannato il recente attacco sferrato dall'Iran contro Israele. Il G7, leggerete nel documento, sostiene la sicurezza di Israele, ma invitiamo tutte le parti a lavorare per evitare una escalation, parole testuali, e il G7 lavorerà per questo risultato. Noi, è scritto, vogliamo continuare a lavorare per stabilizzare la situazione, evitare una escalation e chiediamo a tutte le parti di dare un positivo contributo per questo sforzo collettivo. Chiediamo all'Iran di cessare l'apporto con Hamas, di supportare Hezbollah, e non si esclude la possibilità di adottare sanzioni e altre misure in risposta a quello che è accaduto, ma anche in quello che potrebbe accadere con azioni destabilizzanti. Per quanto riguarda Gaza, abbiamo ribadito il nostro impegno a favore del cessate il fuoco immediato e sostenibile per garantire il rilascio degli ostaggi e per garantire altresì l'arrivo di beni e alimenti per la popolazione civile palestinese. A questo proposito c'è stato riconoscimento da parte di tutto il G7 ed è inserito nel documento conclusivo al lavoro italiano per il progetto di Food for Gaza che abbiamo presentato. È stata da tutti riconosciuta come strumento di pace in quest'area difficile. Abbiamo ribadito anche il no all'offensiva militare israeliana a Rafah e continuiamo a ribadire che il nostro obiettivo è quello di avere 2 stati per 2 popoli. Per quanto riguarda il Mar Rosso, la sicurezza della navigazione e le ripercussioni sulle rotte commerciali è per noi una priorità e l'operazione dell'Unione Europea Aspides agisce in stretta collaborazione con Prosperity Guardian e sta continuando le sue attività a favore delle navi mercantili in transito. Come vi ho detto, continueremo a seguire minuto per minuto, giorno per giorno, l'evoluzione della situazione e continuo e costante forte coordinamento tra i paesi del G7. Per quanto riguarda l'Ucraina, come sapete abbiamo invitato il ministro degli esteri Kuleba, con il quale ho avuto un incontro bilaterale stamane, abbiamo ribadito la necessità di una pace giusta e duratura che rappresenta un'assoluta priorità della Presidenza italiana. Ho parlato stamane anche con il ministro Crosetto, perché lavoriamo per trovare le formule migliori per continuare a sostenere Kiev. Abbiamo concordato che è necessaria un'azione urgente e coordinata verso i partner globali in vista del vertice sulla pace di metà di giugno. La Presidenza italiana intende inoltre rinnovare la collaborazione con l'Africa. Abbiamo invitato a partecipare al G7 come ospite esterno il ministro degli esteri della Mauritania, paese che ha quest'anno la guida della Unione Africana. Abbiamo posto il Sahel al centro dell'agenda G7. E come sapete il continente africano nell'agenda politica dell'Italia rappresenta una priorità. Come sapete c'è il piano Mattei, ne abbiamo parlato anche ieri durante questo incontro che è stato apprezzato dai nostri amici africani e direi anche su questo c'è la voglia di svolgere un ruolo importante da parte del G7. Direi che è stata una riunione questa del G7 molto politica. Abbiamo ribadito l'esistenza di una strategia dei paesi occidentali, dei paesi più industrializzati, che si riconoscono nei valori fondanti della democrazia, la centralità della persona, la libertà, lo Stato di diritto. Questo è a dimostrazione che c'è un'unità basata su valori, non è soltanto un'unità di interessi, è soprattutto un'unità di valori, un'unità politica di una coalizione che ha una visione strategica per tutto ciò che accade nel mondo. Per quanto riguarda l'Africa, ho voluto ribadire che va risolto a livello internazionale con soluzioni strutturali che agiscono sulle cause di fondo il tema dell'immigrazione.
reasons
ho voluto che nella parte
behind
del comunicato
migration.
relativa
In the part of
all'immigrazione legali si
the
sottolineasse
release
l'importanza di regolarle in base alle decisioni che
illegal
ogni legislazione nazionale dello Stato di destinazione vorranno prendere, utilizzando il termine National Sovereign Regulations.
On the basis of
Altro
national
tema
interests,
che abbiamo affrontato stamane dopo
sovereign
aver ampiamente
regulations.
discusso
Another topic which
sulla
we addressed this morning after
situazione in Medio
having
Oriente
discussed the situation in the
è stato
Middle
quello
East
dell'Indo-Pacifico. Abbiamo
was
lavorato per la
the
stabilità in una regione
Indo-Pacific
prioritaria per
region.
gli
We
equilibri
have
politici,
acted for
per il
stability,
commercio mondiale.
political balance,
Vogliamo preservare la
world
stabilità
trade. We want
internazionale,
to
far
maintain
progredire i nostri interessi,
international
ribadendo che la
stability
Cina è un
and
interlocutore indispensabile
advance
per affrontare
interests, repeating
le sfide
that
globali, gli scenari di
China
crisi.
is an essential interlocutor
Abbiamo
in
poi
order to
anche
deal with global
parlato di
scenarios and
disinformazione.
crisis situations. We also
Come vi ho
discussed
annunciato l'altro ieri,
disinformation.
ho firmato un
As
memorandum
I stated
d'intesa
yesterday, I signed
con
an
il
MOU
segretario di Stato
with
Blinken. Italia e
Secretary of
Stati Uniti si
State Blinken, so
impegneranno
Italy and the United
per
States will commit
difendere, credo
themselves
questo sia
to
interesse anche di tutti i
defend.
giornalisti,
I think this is in the interest of all
la
journalists.
libertà di informazione. È
Freedom
una
of
battaglia per la
information.
democrazia.
It's a
Si
battle for
voterà presto
democracy, and
in tutta l'Unione
soon
Europea, si voterà negli
elections
Stati
will be
Uniti,
held in
ci
the
sono elezioni
European
in
Union, in
molte
the
parti del
United
mondo
States. There are
e non
elections
vogliamo
in
che
many
la
parts
nostra
of the world,
democrazia
and we do not want our
sia viziata
democracy
nel momento della
to
scelta da condizionamenti
be tainted
che diffondono
by
notizie non vere,
the
utilizzando tutti gli
dissemination
strumenti,
of
ivi compresa
false
l'intelligenza
information,
artificiale.
using all
Da
kinds
questo
of
punto di vista
instruments,
ci sarà un
including
impegno
artificial
costante
intelligence. From this point of view, there will be an
per
ongoing commitment
far sì
to ensure
che ci sia uno
that
scambio di informazioni. Già ce ne
there
siamo informate
be
oggi,
an exchange of
perché
information. We've
gli attacchi
already
cibernetici, è tutto un
begun today
insieme
because
di iniziative
cyber
che
attacks
alcuni, a cominciare dalla Russia, ricordiamo
need to be
la
stemmed.
disinformazione in occasione
These
dell'attentato
actions have
che c'è stato
started with
qualche
Russia. We
settimana
remember
fa
that in
a
the case of the
Mosca, il
attack
tentativo di dire che era
a few some time
stata
ago in
una
Moscow,
missione
there was an attempt
organizzata da
to
Kiev, mentre era
paint
un'organizzazione
this
di
as
terroristi
an
legati
organization
all'ISIS,
backed
lato
by Kiev,
Afghanistan.
whereas this was an organization
Quindi
of
anche da questo punto di vista c'è grande coesione.
individuals
Abbiamo
from
deciso anche di dar vita a un
backed by
gruppo di lavoro
Afghanistan,
per
and we
affrontare la
decided
situazione ad Haiti,
to establish a working group to
questione che
address the
interessa
situation
molti,
in
anche
Haiti.
la nostra unità di crisi si è
And this is
operata anche
something
per
which is of importance, of much
recuperare alcuni
importance to
cittadini
our
italiani che
crisis
sono in quel
unit, which has
paese.
worked to
Ecco, in conclusione devo
relieve
dire
a number of Italian
che per
nationals in
l'Italia
that country.
è stato un grande successo.
And
Ho
I wish to
ricevuto i
repeat that
ringraziamenti
quickly
di
this
tutti quanti
was
i nostri
a
ospiti
great success. I was
che si
thanked
sono
by all our
sentiti a casa loro
guests
in una cornice
who felt at
fantastica
home
come
in
quella
this
di
wonderful
Capri, uno dei luoghi più
scenario
belli
of Capri, one of
d'Italia,
the
forse
most
direi uno dei
beautiful
luoghi più belli
places
del mondo,
in Italy,
e voglio
and I would
cogliere
say one
l'occasione
of the
per
most beautiful
ringraziare
places in the world.
tutti
And I would
coloro
like
che
to
hanno
take this
partecipato
opportunity to thank all those
all'organizzazione
who
del G7,
took part in the
compresi i nostri
organization
ospiti,
of the G7,
per quanto
including
riguarda
our
gli aspetti
guests,
politici, e poi
with
voglio
regard to the
ringraziare
political aspects.
tutte le
And
forze
I
dell'ordine
also
che
want
con
to
grande
thank
discrezione hanno garantito la
the
sicurezza
law
di questa
enforcement
straordinaria
personnel who have
riunione.
assured the
Voglio ringraziare i vigili del
security
fuoco,
of this
voglio ringraziare
important meeting. I want to thank
le
the
città di Capri, i sindaci di Capri e
fire
Capri per aver
fighting
dato un
services. I want to
contributo
thank the
importante di
municipality of
ospitalità,
Capri
ma tutta la
for
popolazione
having
di
hosted
questa
us,
meravigliosa isola che
and
ha
the whole
accolto
of the
i nostri ospiti a
population of
braccia
this
aperte, dicevo,
wonderful
facendoli
island
sentire a
greeted
casa loro.
our
Ricordiamo che
guests with
qui
open arms, making them
sono
feel
stati ospitati
they were at
circa
home.
300 delegati, oltre 300 tra
300
giornalisti,
delegates,
fotografi
more than 300
e altri
journalists,
operatori dell'informazione.
photographers, and other
Con
news
questa
personnel.
riunione l'Italia si è
With this
confermata
meeting,
una grande
Italy
protagonista sulla
confirmed
scena
its role as a major
mondiale.
protagonist on the world stage,
Si è dimostrata
and it has
una realtà forte nell'area del
shown
Mediterraneo.
itself to be
E
a important entity in the
È ancora
Mediterranean.
una volta crocevia
And
di
it is
equilibri globali.
once again, it's a crossroads
In
for
conclusione
global,
voglio manifestare
a global balance, global equilibrium.
il
And
mio
finally,
orgoglio
I want to
di essere italiano,
express my pride as an Italian,
sono fiero
proud to
di
be
tutto il lavoro che è
Italian. I'm
stato
very
svolto
proud of all the work which
e
has
sono
been
anche
carried out,
orgoglioso
and I'm also
che
very
l'Italia possa
proud
vantare
that Italy
bellezze come l'isola di Capri. Grazie ancora una volta a tutti quanti voi
has
per il
beauties like
servizio
the
che
island of
state
Capri.
rendendo in un
And I'd
momento
like to
molto
thank you all
complicato in
for the
cui
service
c'è
you're
tanto
providing in
bisogno
a
di
very
avere informazioni veritiere.
complex
Grazie.
period where it's very important
Prima
to have
domanda,
accurate
Patrizio di
information.
Sirio ANSA.
Base edizione Sirio
Arriva il
ANSA.
microfono.
First question. The microphone is coming. Good morning, Mr.
Alcuni
Minister.
osservatori e commentatori già
Some
questa mattina, dopo
observers
quello
and
che è successo
commentators
in
this
Iran
morning
questa
after what
notte,
happened in
ipotizzano
Iran
che questo possa,
last
diciamo in
night,
termine, congelare quello scenario, quel fronte.
thinking that
Che
this could
significa
freeze
questo però per gli altri due fronti
scenario,
caldi
that
del Medio
front.
Oriente, cioè
What does this mean
Gaza
for the other
ovviamente
two
e la frontiera tra Libano e
hot
Israele? Ci
fronts
sono previsioni?
in the Middle East, Gaza and the border between Lebanon and Israel? Well, we've said that we are acting for de-escalation. When we say de-escalation, we want this part of the conflict between Iran and Israel to come to an end. We want to be optimistic. And, as I said, the G7 will not be a spectator in our text. It's clearly expressed that the G7 has worked, will work, and is working and will working to achieve a de-escalation. We'll do everything within our powers to ensure that the goals we've set ourselves can be attained in the short, medium, and long term. De-escalation, ceasefire, release of the hostages, aid to the Palestinian civilian population in order to achieve the goal of two states, two peoples, two states. So we've not just taken a photograph of the situation, we've undertaken a collective political comment, and that's why I said it's a very positive meeting where the G7 committed itself to a political role to bring peace to the Middle East in line with our principles, of course, and the defense of our values. And therefore, I believe that we can look optimistically, not optimistically perhaps, but we will do everything we can in order to make this document a fact. We've obviously condemned the attack against Israel from Iran, the first time this has happened, and we invited all parties to commit themselves to de-escalation. I believe that the message which is this message issuing from so many countries can be taken on board by the various parties involved. Rai News. Good morning. I'd like to thank you. Whether during the working session the United States provided any information on how and whether Israel had provided prior notice of these attacks. I think you know this. The United States were informed at the last minute, but there was no involvement on the part of the United States. It was simply information which was provided. But I believe that what has happened is also the small scale of the event is the result also of the efforts of the G7. With regard to the Italians, because there's a small group of Italians living in the city which was targeted by drones, and none of them have any problems, and they're saying life has resumed normally. The Iranian airspace has been reopened, and therefore I believe that the atmosphere is better than it was last night. And the work of the G7, I think, also serves to improve the atmosphere. I want to be optimistic. It'd be bad to not be. La Stampa newspaper. Good morning, Minister. With regard to the Ukrainian air defense, Kuleba, Zelensky, and yesterday Stoltenberg talked not just about Patriots, but some Ps, which Italy has. Yesterday, Prime Minister Meloni said, I've asked Minister Crosetto to do everything possible because the civilian infrastructures of Ukraine are being destroyed, and we have to do anything possible. And you've talked to Minister Crosetto. If you've taken some decision, because up to some time ago we could say we have no Patriots, but now they're asking a system which is available to Italy. I can only confirm what the Prime Minister said, also in light of my discussion this morning with Minister Crosetto, which took place in the presence of Minister Kuleba. I repeat, we will do everything possible in order to help Ukraine, also from the point of view of air protection. Reuters. Good afternoon, Minister. On another topic, I'd like to put you a question. With regard to frozen Russian assets, in the release, it says that the leaders will need to find the final solution. But based on your conversations currently, which, in your point of view, could be the follow-up to this, how can we solve this problem? The problem's very clear with regard to interest. The interest, there is a legal basis which can be made use of. We have to see where there's a legal basis to make use of the principle of the frozen assets. We believe that law has to be complied with when we want to comply with the law. So based on the assessments made, the leaders will then decide on what to do. With regard to possible sanctions against Iran, every entity decides on the basis of different rules. The European Union countries decide together. On Monday, there'll be a meeting of EU foreign ministers. In our text, you see we mention sanctions or other measures. Our meeting was a political meeting, not a technical meeting, and we'll see how the various countries, based on the differing rules, there are, we Italians, French, Germans, we can't take national decisions on the sanctions. The decisions are taken at a community level. United States, Japan, Canada, the United States can decide independently. We have to take decisions inside the European Union. The various possibilities, I will assess what are the most effective are.
Sky News Arabia. Good afternoon. American Secretary of State Blinken truly shared with you what was happening in Isfahan this morning. And as far as Lebanon is concerned, it seems to be a hotspot. What is the reaction of the European Union? Thank you. Of course, we all shared information that was coming in, that was at hand. Because, as we said, the relationship amongst our countries consolidated. And this was one of the targets of the Italian presidency, to have an authoritative G7. So in order to be authoritative and make decisions, you need to exchange information that was had by each country. Well, from very early in the morning, I started calling our embassies, for example, in Tel Aviv and Tehran, which obviously had been working through the night to get information on the situation. And, of course, they all offered information, and we shared them amongst the G7 countries. As far as Lebanon is concerned, the situation is crucial. We Italians are particularly sensitive to this because, as you know, there are 2 Italian missions in Lebanon, One which is part of UNIFIL, and we have more than 1,100 men and women which serve as a buffer between Israel and Hezbollah. And I'd like to thank those military people because they play their role effectively, are mediators and have excellent relations on both sides. And they will continue being stationed there for their military role. As Minister Crosetto, Minister for Defense, has always said at the UN, they also play, of course, a political role, but there's a second military mission. It is bilateral. It's based in the Beirut port, at the Beirut port, and this is involved in training the Lebanese army, which is an important goal, having a military entity which is not Hezbollah. So I believe our presence in that country is important. The stability of Lebanon is fundamental. It is a country which has refugees, which is living in a difficult situation financially, economically, and it is no accident that I went there twice. And a few weeks ago, our Prime Minister went there as well. So we Italians, but all of us, are underlining the need to have stability in that country, and we all hope that we will finally have the border as we had for the maritime border, the land border, so that there is a clear situation, which may be an additional element to decrease tension. And we hope that no missiles are launched from Lebanon by Hezbollah against Israel. In the document, we also refer to Hezbollah because we ask Iran not to supply weapons to this political military organization, which is attacking Israel. GR Rai. My first love. Minister, this interplay of action, counteraction, don't you think this might initiate a new escalation, a slow-burning escalation? How can we try and switch the fire off? We are doing this. The text of the final document we approved, as I said and I read, is very, very clear. We are committed, and we will commit towards escalation. So a political and diplomatic role, an active role, will be played by all G7 countries, which will work in favor of de-escalation in the area of the Middle East. So there is a political commitment standing. There hasn't been a technical G7. We haven't had a G7 in which we merely examined the international situation. This was a G7 in which we reiterated cohesion among all the countries belonging to the organization. And above all, we have committed to acting together, strengthening cooperation, as I said, on a daily basis, not just the political and strategic cooperation, but cooperation on a daily basis to exchange information and decide over shared or common actions. We will do our utmost so that our political line, I'm not saying we hope to, but we will do everything possible so that this becomes actions. Agencia Nova. Hello, Minister. I would like to move away geographically, and I'd like to go to the Indo-Pacific, where there are strong tensions, and Italy has launched some messages in terms of its commitment, and President Meloni announced some joint exercises, military exercises with Japan. So from this G7, do we have some sign of deterrence towards China? We would like to have a situation of peace, free circulation of goods, and the presence of our military navy pursues this aim. We'd like to give a sign towards the free circulation of goods. We work to defend the status quo in the Indo-Pacific area. And we hope that a de-escalation will take place there too. We are committed to being present, also through a positive relationship with India, which is a very important country for us, and having a continuing dialogue with China, of course. Last week, a strategic cooperation meeting was had, which was a cooperation agreement that was launched in 2004, and we asked them to cooperate in terms of safeguarding maritime shipping in the Suez and Red Sea area, and because some Chinese ships were attacked as well. And in this perspective, active involvement was announced on the part of China, and I hope that this will be the prerequisite for further positive developments. The President of the Republic will go to visit China. China is our competitor, but a competitor with which we would like to share good relations to guarantee peace. So we will continue to cultivate relations with Australia, Philippines, New Zealand, and Japan. As you know, there is a defense industry agreement to build a military craft between Italy, Japan, and the UK. So I believe that relations with Japan have a pivotal role to play. I spoke over dinner about this with the Foreign Affairs Minister of Japan, and once again we would like to further strengthen our relations with this country to guarantee stability in the Indo-Pacific area. In the document you will find that we reiterate concerns about what North Korea is doing, and we ask China, the document is a reference, not to supply double-use material to the Russian Federation. This is a clear message. It is not weapons, but it is dual-use material. And once again, this is a very clear and evident message, because China can do much to stop the war of Russia against Ukraine. So time is running out. There's only two questions left. Bloomberg. Hello, Minister. Please, can you help us understand what happened specifically this morning? Iran was attacked by drones. Against what type of installation? And there's something else I'd like to ask you. We have read there are different versions of diplomatic action to actually affect the situation. What did Italy suggest, or what was its line? Because apparently you were successful. Well, we based ourselves on common sense. From the very day I was the first minister to get to the places where the 7th of October tragedy had taken place. From the very beginning, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of a friendly country, I asked Israel to have and to wage a proportionate reaction to the attack suffered. But over the last months, we always expressed words of closeness to Israel, but we also asked Israel to be cautious. We spoke of what's been happening in Palestine, and of course we are amongst the countries calling for ceasefire. It is no accident that we call for no attack to be made against Rafah. And in Rome, when the Minister Katz of Israel came to we actually supported the Food for Gaza project, and we also asked that a representative of Israel to be involved in this project, so that Israel knows that this food aid may reach the area in cooperation with FAO, Red Crescent, Red Cross, and all our civil organizations, so that those goods may actually get to the people who need them rather than in the hands of Hamas. So once again, through the new entry points in the north of Gaza, this may take place. So as friends of the country, we absolutely defend the security of Israel. We have reiterated this, but we do call for de-escalation. So as the G7, when friendly countries launch a message, considerations must then follow on the part of Israel. Hopefully it is a positive consideration. Our document is clear. We are friends. We condemn the attack suffered by Israel, but also a call for de-escalation on both sides. Last, Master Sabene, TG2. Hello, Minister. You spoke of the message of the political role held by the G7. I ask myself, couldn't the G7 be an interlocutor to help sit Iran? How absurd may it be? Iran and Israel sit around a table, a negotiation table. Do you think this is impossible as a scenario? Number one, what about de-escalation? Well, it is unlikely for Israel and Iran to sit around the same table in the near future. But what matters today, as I say, is de-escalation. So this phase to be closed, and we can live and start and open a different season, a different period, by solving the problem in Gaza, by reducing aggressiveness both on the part of Houthis and Hezbollah, as we know, are supplied by Iran. And when we speak of common sense and initiatives towards de-escalation, we are referring to Iran, and we're asking Iran to work towards de-escalation. Otherwise, it looks like the responsibility is that of Israel. It is Iran who first attacked massively Israel. Not all G7 countries have diplomatic relationship with Iran. We do, and we will convey messages, as I did. Because hours before the attack, I talked with the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs, and once again, the message was clear, a reiteration of our political stance and our preference for de-escalation. Even when you don't share opinions, diplomatic efforts must continue if the aim is peace without giving ground. But dialogue does not mean giving up on our positions, but it means that we may try and convince the interlocutor who may have a different opinion to undertake less violent attitudes. And in our opinion, all the countries of the G7 wish to arrive towards a de-escalation, which must open a new season of peace. Thank you. Thank you.